Okay. Good evening. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to another edition of the Watchdogs, our Saturday show that touches on everything. We try to do a little bit of everything on this show, especially some investigative reporting. We haven't gotten real good at it yet, but we're working on it. So y'all bear with us. I got my new co-host, Mr. Rob R.G. Bryant. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be back in the mix, as I say.
Okay, Mr. Bryant will be my co-host on this show from now on, and we hope to do some great reporting and letting everybody know what's happening in this region, not just in this city, but in this region and across the country. So y'all stand by. Today's show, we have a lot in store for you all. So y'all just stand by, and we'll see. It's mainstream media bias towards the black community. That's what we'll be talking about today. That is what we'll talk about today. And today we have some special guests. We have the Alderwoman from the First District, the Honorable Bernetta Bryant Lanier.
Good afternoon.
We have the Alderwoman from Post 1 of the city of Savannah at large, Alderwoman, the Honorable Kesha Gibson-Carter.
Hello, Savannah, and hello, Watchdog.
Hello.
Kesha is at a theater, so it's real dark in there. So if she puts on her camera, then it'll look like she got some frog eyes with her glasses. And so she just because the theater is dark and all you see is her glasses. So y'all will just see her picture.
Hall, you are partially correct. You are partially correct. I am at AMC Theater supporting Windsor Forest High School and Jenkins High School at their grand opening of the theater, right?
Right.
And so I'm kind of in between. I need to be supportive there. I need to be supportive here. So don't make people think that I'm in the movies, watching a movie.
Oh, no, not the movies. Well, I'm glad for clarification. I'm glad you straightened that out.
See how the media take your words and turn it
Right.
Right.
ATR,
If that is part of the
ATR,
media,
you are our last hope. You are our
yeah,
last hope.
yeah. I am so sorry. I should have got that right.
That's right. Get it straight.
And lastly, we got a Dr. Deidre Grim from the Ivory Bay, CEO of Ivory Bay. She is on today because this is one of the reasons that we're having this particular subject today, because of the bias towards Ivory Bay and all that is trying to do good for the community, but the media doesn't want anything good to happen in our communities, and we know that. So, Dr. Grim, you have a statement that you wanted to read first before your attorney comes on, before the attorney for Ivory Bay comes on. So go ahead and read your statement if you would.
Sure. So today we're speaking about media bias. And everyone knows here that I'm an academic. So I wanted to kind of touch on some parallels about media bias and academic research. There's some of the same biases that we could probably incur. And so in our research, it affects outcomes, basically. So there are three main types of biases. There's information bias, there's selection bias, and confounding bias. So with that said, it's just information bias is just as it sounds, using information that will support your hypothesis, or in this instance, the media's claim. Layman's terms, or what they include. Selection bias is also self-explanatory. It's where the researcher strategically chooses samples that they would include in their analysis. So in that statement, or who they include. And confounding is when variables or samples can both negatively and positively affect the exposure of interest and outcome of interest. The difference in this instance is the media's confounding bias is normally not a big issue. It is a big issue, but in research, it's normally not, because for some reason, it seems to balance itself out. But in the interest of the media who broadcast to the publics, it can pose a major problem because the outcomes are usually distorted, right? So why did I take you down this whole lane of quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis? Because we see the media locally is using a combination of all these biases to deceive the public. In the instance of using the terms Ivory Bay's plans and Alderwoman Lanier and her family seeks to gain from Ivory Bay's plans are propaganda to set up and defraud the public. The information / data that Michael Brown was not thorough or all inclusive. The information that the media outlets used was partial after they didn't hear a response from Ivory Bay's representatives or Alderwoman Lanier. So they moved forward on a story which provided salacious and scandalous claims, as opposed to using what they included, right? So, and selection bias occurred, especially in the city manager's investigation of who he spoke to substantiate his claims. He didn't reach out to me. He didn't reach out to my board. He didn't reach out to Alderwoman Lanier or her husband or even Mr. Rich Ferguson. He just chugged along full speed ahead without hearing both sides. Not that I think that he would have changed his tune in the first place, but I would say, and I hate to do it like this, that is public administration ethics 101. So getting both sides of the story instead of going on your terms or your reasonings is promoting bias. And in the instance of compounding bias, which is very critical in this instance, the mission of Ivory Bay is to create generational wealth and low wealth communities using an asset-based economic approach. So remember how I said confounding bias could have negative and positive outcomes? Well, in this instance, the average logical anti-racist person would not see the negative outcomes in our mission in accomplishing it. But to those on the other side, we are a great threat to their policies, systems, and environments, because we will take away the power from them and put it back where it's supposed to be, with the people. Therefore, they won't be so dependent upon the government and the subsidies and stimulus and social programs. So to me and the average other person on this panel, it would seem like a win-win, but it affects the status quo's ability to control the people when their power is usurped. So I always refer to Kissinger when I speak on food control, but the entire quote is quite fitting. He wrote, "Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control the whole continents. And who controls the money can control the world." So I'm going to leave you with that right there, and we can get into this discussion. Thank you.
I picked D. The answer is D. All of the above.
And if I could add to that, I think, I agree with your quote. But the thing, what we've got to remind people is, the and part to that quote is, if we vote for the right people who share our values and who understands policy and how to navigate that, then, like you said, the power then goes back to the people. And we've got to have an educational campaign around that so that we help people to understand how that looks. So I totally can see how we can functionalize that quote, but put the and part to it as well.
Very much so. And I think what has occurred is that a lot of the citizens thought they were voting for people that shared the same views and were going to advocate for them. But we find ourselves at a fork in the road where there has been this division that the media has hyped up but it has been done behind the scenes on council. And so I staunchly agree that Alderwoman Lanier, Alderwoman Miller Blakely, and Alderwoman Lanier and Gibson-Carter, fight and advocate for the public as a whole. They don't toe the line of, if you do this, I'll do that. At the end of the day, it's all about the people. And so we have to make conscientious, and we have to use what old people call as, what's the term? Your gut feeling, your intuition, right, in knowing who's for you and who isn't. And so read people. I'm not going to say read people, but watch their actions. My mom always says, I don't care what your mouth say, I go by your actions. So I hope people are watching at City Council and the way people vote. Take some time, get some clips there, and you make the decision of who you're going to send back in the next 3 years.
And if I may add this as well, when we talk about media, and this is related to kind of the piece that's in attached to the issue. What interests me with this homeless shelter piece is how the media wanted to target one individual who happens to be African American, but yet has not done an analysis on what a homeless shelter would mean to that community, the economic impact it would have, the benefits it would have. None of that has been shared in the media, and it just interests me that they will attack an individual who's trying to put wealth in a community. It just baffles my mind. Well, tell us the other side of the story as well.
That's correct. And the media, they all, I think, are in cahoots together. These guys, they're meeting behind closed doors, and then they give their orders out to their employees to do certain things. And I mean, you can see it. It's obvious, but they just challenge us on it because they know that we don't fight. We don't have a history of fighting in this community. But times have changed, and we're here to tell them. Take Lou Phelps, for instance. I posted it. Somebody sent it to me late, and so I posted it. That is not my comment. That is not my comment. I posted what she said. I couldn't get it all in there because it only lets you put so much in there. But I'm going to read you Lou Phelps' comment.
Please do.
As was made clear, this is not the land of Butler Plantation where the slave sale took place. Land that must be preserved to honor the weeping time. However, the city will check all the historical land records again to be sure. The city council approved the zoning change to allow the sale to the Salvation Army only if it can be confirmed that it was not part of the Butler Plantation. More than 70 years ago, when public housing was built on the property, all of this was reviewed and was as well. Once again, we have several misinformation. I don't know what you mean. Try to anger a portion of members of council who spread, I guess, to our residents and fail to work as a team and respect others. Lou Phelps, Savannah Business Journal. Now, she can't even write good, I guess, so she probably don't need to be posting any damn thing.
Julius, you are correct. She doesn't write very well. Legibly, she doesn't write
That's
very
hilarious.
well. She doesn't write very well structurally, and she doesn't
so
print
hilarious.
very well either.
Such
So listen,
ignorance.
that was Lou Phelps' response to me. I sent Pat Longstaff's clip, the media clip he put together, a documentary actually, of our meeting, the last meeting where we voted on the item involving the property on the west side, now known as the Weeping Time property. And so I just hit, and this is the downside of not being able to purge your friend list. As an elected official, I can't delete people, right? So she was on that list that went to everybody, and that was her reply to me. And so she's replying to me in caps as if she's shouting. If you can hear the tone in that, it's so rude. So as opposed to having a conversation with me about this, she's already peeping her hand and letting it be known what her position is or who she supports. In addition, I've had previous conversations with her because I've had to contact my attorney to ask her to retract statements and articles that she's written that have been negative, salacious, and damaging for no reason at all, no credibility. This woman, along with others, I didn't know what the Business Journal was until recently. Please don't follow my words on this one. There's no need to look it up. I don't want to give them any credit. Her, Deanne Kaminsky from Savannah Morning News, Adam Van Brimmer, these people have a particular animus with individuals who are progressive and aggressive in fighting for the change that the electorate sent us to work toward. One of the primary reasons they are indifferent to our positions is because we don't represent who they supported. Remember, let's rewind back to 2019 when Savannah Morning News endorsed every single loser in the race. They did. Every single loser. So by mere fact of our arrival, it says that there's something wrong with you, with Savannah Morning News, you. And so they go about and they restructure and they have this major management change. Fire Michael Traynor, Susan Catron. They got rid of all of the bad seeds, the evil people, right? Who were basically just upholding the culture of Savannah Morning News. So too bad for them. Only to bring in this token in the form of Raina Cash, who is an African-American female CEO. So this is what I want to say to you all. As I stated on your show before, Mr. Hall, we have to stop getting, well, I shouldn't say stop getting caught up. We have to strike a delicate balance with recognizing that everything is not about race when we're dealing with these issues. Yes, there is a huge disadvantage, in particular for African-American females, when it comes to the media and how they report things on us and about us. But for the most part, these issues are primarily associated with economics. We are upsetting the apple cart. We are shaking the money tree. We are disturbing a $1 billion industry here in Savannah. And as Dr. Grim so eloquently stated, we are essentially fighting to give the power back to the people and to return the money back to the people. And so as we are doing that, these attacks are coming at us, and it's perceived as if it's about race. And that's by design, because they want us to focus on the low hanging fruit, right? And miss the boat on the big picture, and the big picture being the money. You know, Van Johnson, just during that same cycle, Savannah Morning News didn't endorse him. They endorsed Eddie DeLoach. Savannah Morning News, WTOC, SAV, and JCL, they indicted him, had him in national news for participating in a meeting that had been pegged as no white media, like black media only meeting, right? And so then they turn around and make him the world's hero. So you see, they do that to the advantage of them. So this is less about African Americans being mistreated in the media. And when I say less, I don't mean that it doesn't have a factor. It does have a factor. But the biggest factor that I need everybody to focus on, because we need white people to support us in this effort too. We need Asian people, Hispanic people. We need people from all hues, creed, and color to support us in this issue. And I'm going to leave you, but I want to leave you with these pieces. And then I'll check back in and see what y'all said about everything else. But first, I want to just say, Mr. Hall, thank you for having the insight and the foresight to create this, understanding that this was necessary, and you created these platforms after seeing how we were being dragged by the media because we were basically trying to work and address the issues that people sent us to fight for. And so consider this. Consider the fact that just this last week, the weeping time was probably the single largest social item that we would have been giving consideration to, in that the decision we made would either preserve history or desecrate history in the city of Savannah, but mostly it would have been had national implications. Savannah Morning News, WTOC, WSAV, they did very little, JCL, very little by focusing on the weeping time, its worth, the weight, the history, but they focused more on the contention. Whenever you heard it or whenever anybody aired it, they had me saying point of order, which came further down in the meeting. It was so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. They heard me saying point of order. You aired that, but you didn't air the reason why I was saying point of order. And I was saying point of order because Van Johnson was disrespecting Alderwoman Bernetta Lanier. He was being critical of her, downing her. And I called for point of order, but you highlight me because there's this wave to crucify Kesha. But now it's Alderwoman Bernetta Lanier's turn because she's fighting for something. And as I stated, they can't even be original. This is the same play that they took out of the book when they filed the ethics complaint, as opposed to focusing on the fact that, well, why did she curse? Well, aren't you supposed to withhold information in executive session? Well, if older persons are expressing and exposing things that are in executive session about somebody cursing, what more must they be exposing and expressing to others that's not supposed to hear? Why wasn't that the focus? And then further, if you're so interested and curious, wouldn't you think it would be more efficacious for the public to know that the older woman was not simply cursing people out? Which she never did. I never cursed a person. I didn't curse a thing. I cursed an action. I cursed at an action that was ensuing, where the mayor was being manipulative and maneuvering to change the process to get a candidate who had been voted out of the city manager search process and trying to get this person back in. And so I think that would have been more beneficial for the people to know that there's something nefarious afloat going on with the city manager search, which guess what? Ultimately, that's exactly what we resulted in.
They created the distraction. They created the distraction so that it could not be on that. And that was a travesty for Van to have done what he did to that city manager candidate. And to throw all that money away. They're not even looking at the waste, the amount of pieces of office for him throwing that money away, knowing that you had a viable candidate.
Between that time and now, we now have a situation where with this next search and the old search and bringing people in and flying people out, we're probably going to be out of pocket an additional $100,000.
Well, and if I may speak on that,
and finally, you have
Alderwoman, if I may speak on that point,
situation where
go ahead.
The reporter from Savannah Morning News, in her attempting to get an understanding of where I'm coming from and she wants to work with me, she acknowledges to me that she was raised a racist. Deanne Kaminsky, she told me her family was racist. She was raised racist.
I'm not surprised.
And you want to ask me what my problem is with you? And when I tell you that your position and your approach is biased and racist, but you just revealed to me. And I don't know, I kind of have that energy where people tell me stuff that they probably shouldn't, or that I would never tell anybody else. But you tell me that, so how am I supposed to believe it? And I asked her, I said, well, go back and look at your stories. Go back and pull the stories of Bernetta Lanier, Dr. Shabazz, Alicia Miller Blakely, and myself. And you all have not reported on anything positive, any of our initiatives, anything that we've done in the community, but you insist on, I'm going to leave that one right there.
Well, Kesha,
and then,
before Robert goes,
Kesha, had an experience with knowing that the media was biased, and I don't know if this had to do with my race. I don't know if this had to do with my lawsuit. I don't know if it had to do with my position on city council. I don't know what it had to do with. But there was a threat to my life by a sitting police officer who is in the department right now today, where there was a full investigation, and the findings were that this woman saw me crossing the street on Montgomery Street going to the courthouse, and she had to slam on brakes to keep from hitting me with her car because she knew that people would not believe that she did not intend to hit me. But then she said she wanted to hit me so bad. They then assigned this woman to patrol. So this is going on just before and as this issue with this ethics complaint is going about.
Savannah.
And so I say to them, when the reporter comes to me and want to comment on the ethics hearing, I said, why haven't you all talked about this report, about this investigation of this officer, and that this woman is now on the street back on patrol, running me over with my car? You know what she said to me? This is a reporter at WSAV. She says, my higher ups told me not to do the story. So we have journalists who are budding, who are talented, who are just getting experience, and some who are experienced, but they cannot do their job effectively and ethically because of the bias that exists within their organization that is controlled by the establishment of Savannah. And so that's our greater fight. That's our greater fight.
And
so,
you know what interests me is we got all these task forces. Why can't there be a task force to parallel council in this new search for the city manager? That just blows my mind. All these task forces with no outcomes, but yet we can't have one of the citizens to help do this search for the next city council manager. I mean, city manager. But I digress.
Julius,
Go ahead.
I got something, and I think it'll get us kind of back where we're trying to get the program. So thank you for the invitation. Julius invited us to come talk about mainstream media bias in Savannah, the mainstream media bias, and to get an opportunity to talk a little bit also about Ivory Bay. And that's coming up later, and I'm looking forward to that also. But then today on the program, he says mainstream media bias towards the Black community. And that's absolutely more pointed and direct. And that's happening right now. And we all are experiencing that. And I like to look at the whole landscape when we're dealing with what we're dealing with, when we're fighting this battle against media and propaganda, because that's the way they're using the media as propaganda towards a changing landscape. And people just need to understand that this is the era of disruption in the world economy. This is the era of disruption. And in the media business, it has gone from print to digital, and that hit them in the pocket and their business plan really badly, because I don't think they saw how fast this was coming and planned for the impact. So that's part of the disruption. And from in the economy, in the business world, look at Uber and how it disrupted the cab industry, and look at Amazon and how it disrupted retail, and look at Airbnb and how it disrupted the hotel industry. When people are looking for equity, even in business, and not being dictated on how they travel and how they live, and looking for to live instead of exist inside of an industrial society, it has changed to a digital, technology-driven society. It's the era of disruption. So also in the politics world, in the political world, people, again, because of information and digital and the internet and social media, people are more aware, and Black moms are more activists because our children have been under assault. Our sons have been being slaughtered, and Black moms had to push everything aside and step to the front and say, we're going to get this right or else. And we just didn't step there. We climbed there and prepared, because Black women, being the demographic of the most college educated demographic in the United States, we prepared for this, and it didn't happen overnight. And there's, our struggle is known. So this is the era of disruption. So Savannah Morning News and those media outlets, vestiges of the old South, they're going out kicking and screaming and clawing because the economics, they have been using their resources as propaganda to drive and create a narrative. And it's like brainwash propaganda, but people are more aware and have more choices of where they get their information. We get national information, we get information out of Africa, we get worldwide information. The information is so vast, we're not limited to that brainwash anymore, and they are a dinosaur. And then we have the federal government created an entity in a season when people were fighting for equitable benefits and equitable return on their public investment, and they created a corporation, a corporate opportunity called a community development corporation. And the intent in Congress at the time was to give the little guy, the community guy, the neighborhood guy, those guys that lay down in front of bulldozers, to give them an opportunity, since corporates were overwhelming communities, corporate was overwhelming development, neighborhood development, community. They created a community development corporation to give the little guy an opportunity to impact their economy from the bottom up, so they can compete. Here's an opportunity for you to cooperate, to get all of your associates, your stakeholders to cooperate in order to build your community. And we have taken the advantage of that. So I'm gonna leave on that. And when we get back around to Ivory Bay as a community development corporation and its mission, and then I'll share some more. But right now, I did want to share about the era of disruption and what you see as a dying industry and how they are fighting to maintain the status quo when it's inevitable. And just look at industry and look at the other areas and know that this is inevitable, that you're going to see a population and a demographic rise up in Savannah and create wealth in low wealth communities. Thank you, Julius. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. We're glad to have on board, has joined us, attorney Mawuli Davis from the Bozeman Johnson Davis Johnson Bozeman law firm here in Savannah and Atlanta. I might say that wrong or backwards, but welcome, attorney Davis. You represent Ivory Bay, and we're just going to give you a chance to express yourself and whatever you and Dr. Grim have planned.
Brother Hall, thank you. It's an honor to be on. And my greetings to our Alderwomen and their courageous stance that they continue to take around equitable distribution of power. And that's an ongoing struggle for Black folk in America and around the world. And I'm proud, and we are proud to be able to represent Ivory Bay in attempting to set a real new and clear narrative about this misnomer about the proposal, quote unquote proposal, that was submitted being an Ivory Bay proposal. So we have done our best to transmit a letter, a cease and desist letter to all parties to make it very clear that what they continue to describe as the Ivory Bay proposal as it relates to the Bartow property is not a Ivory Bay proposal. It's not. And it is an attempt, we call it a red herring. It's a distractor. And so we want to do our best to clear that and make that very clear. So we're honored to be able to work with Dr. Grim, the CEO of Ivory Bay, and be able to support the ongoing effort to ensure that Ivory Bay and CDCs who want to express the community's act of self-determination, because that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about self-determination, a community's ability to determine for themselves what will be placed in their community. And that is the work of Ivory Bay and other CDCs, not just in Savannah, but around the state of Georgia and around the country, is how do we create opportunities for those that have been historically marginalized and left out. And so when we try to step in, these roadblocks or impediments are created. And so we're going to do our best in the legal realm to try to level the playing field and ensure that these voices are not muffled. And people, I heard somebody say, and I'll be quiet after this, that, we're here to give voice to the voiceless. That's not true. They have a voice, they just haven't been heard. So there's not a voiceless. They have voice. Our folk have voices, but those voices have not been heard. And so what we seek to do is to try to amplify those voices so they can be heard loud and clear by the powers that be, wherever we need to ensure that we find equity in this space.
Awesome. Dr. Grim, well, you have a great attorney on board there, and I'm sure that they will cease and desist once they get that, because we're going to have a full media assault on them. They don't recognize us yet, but they're going to feel us after a while. If you get them in the court system that way, then we're going to attack them every other kind of way that we can, because it has to stop. My big problem is that it's not more of us helping these women. It's not more of us helping everybody that's being attacked. I know they're going to attack me after a while. I don't care. It don't bite it to me, because I'm gonna do what I do. But I'm just disappointed that we're in this fight, even though it's building. We're in this fighting without a lot of help. We got soldiers in the Army, but we need hundreds of soldiers, not just the Carl Murrays, the Ivan Cohens, the Leonard Smalls, the Anthony Mabins. We need real fighters. Not just the Jamal Touré, the Jay Joneses, the Mawuli Davis. We need fighters. We need people. We need not just commanders. We need soldiers. And we need all our black men to stand up. We need our black organizations to stand up. This ain't about race. They making it about race. They making it about race because they're disserving us. We're at a disadvantage, and they're continuing to attack us. So we need to have everybody stand up so that we can fight on the one accord, so we can answer them on one accord. You're right. They have a voice, but that voice is being stamped out. So,
and if I may add, Julius, there was a statement made by a particular politician, and it was told to a group of people that you don't have any power. You're powerless. And so just to piggyback off of what Attorney Davis stated, we've always had power. That's why I hate the term empowered. I don't need anyone to give me some power. I can stand on my own too if I've been given the resources and tools to advocate and activate myself in the community. But that's what we haven't been given. We have been given disinvestment, broken promises, lies, and just the meager ability to learn to live. And so when I think of this narrative of being powerless, that's what they don't want. They don't want community building. They don't want us to come together, because when we unify, like you said, when we have the soldiers, we have the commanders, we have the chiefs, we can definitely activate and actualize what our true worth and value is. And I believe, honestly, I believe in reparations, but I believe our worth is more than 40 acres and a mule. I think, we built this country and we deserve our equitable share of what it is to grow in this country. And so I will be right back.
All right. Brother Bryant. Oh, he went off? Okay. Well,
oh no, I'm right here.
Okay, you got anything?
Honorable Kareem McMichael. But yeah, I totally agree. I think she hit it right on the head. And that word power is so interesting in the fact that I totally agree. Sometimes people forget that even as I don't want to say non-leaders, but you don't necessarily have to be a politician to get out there and be a change agent or to stand for something. And so when people realize what that looks like and that the masses can make change, I mean, think about it a couple of weeks ago where the citizens of that community stood with the pastor and said, we're not going to tolerate you telling us what you're going to do in our community. That in itself was powerful. And so when people realize how that looks and that you're not going to just bully us around because you wear a particular title, that can be really, really impactful.
Julius, can I add that Ivory Bay, I would love for people to understand, that has been scandalized so much in the media. Ivory Bay is a wealth creation model. Anyone could use the Ivory Bay model, any organization. It's a model of organization, organizing in a corporate structure, organizing to follow a mission, just like any other corporation. That mission just happened to be building wealth in low wealth communities by using asset-based economic development. It's systemic, it's structural, and it's foundational. And it will change the economic landscape in this city if it reached its potential or is able now to stand, but is able to, once it's able to take steps and run, it would definitely change the landscape in the city. And in doing this work lately about the Weeping Time property and the Bartow property and this fight and this battle that we've been in, there's a lot of silence and people who folks once thought were leaders. There's a community of folk in these Black neighborhoods that have impacted these Black neighborhoods in more passive times. People looked up to them. Some were pastors and some are politicians, and people looked up to these people because they were in the spotlight. It's when Black folks were more calm and compensatory, just appeasing. And right now I feel fear in trying to in organizing people. There's fear in people, and fear, when I was in the marketing world and training people, we taught that fear represents false evidence appearing real. FEAR, false evidence appearing real. That's all fear is. It's false. And the media has been responsible for putting that false evidence out there, and these more timid leaders it's appearing real to them, and they're really just afraid to push back against the status quo. And that's sad, but the young people seem to gravitate towards the message of upward mobility and of creating a vehicle that will drive upward mobility, such as this corporate organization. So that's what we see in the Ivory Bay model. I want people to understand that Ivory Bay was accused of being or competing, wanting to compete as to develop the Weeping Time property, and that's not true. Individual company, Eco Development, Mr. Rich Ferguson's company, created a concept plan that I looked at, a concept plan that I was glad to share with City Council to show them this is the type project that the people can embrace and want to embrace, and this is the direction that these people want their community go in, as opposed to this that you all have accused of us of not knowing what we wanted. So there was a concept plan that we looked at and shared. Mr. Ferguson later shared that plan with the MPC, and he added Ivory Bay as a potential partner. He added Ivory Bay into his proposal. So Dr. Grim has never met Mr. Ferguson, nor any of the board members. And that's so unfortunate that Ivory Bay is being accused of trying to compete. Now, listen at this. What Mr. Ferguson presented and thought was a good idea, it is a good idea. But in this instance, we did not file it. Ivory Bay did not file it. I did not. Was it a good idea from Mr. Ferguson? Yes, but technically we did not file anything. And so we're being accused of, and they're trying to paint that as very bad, that the self-determination is something nefarious, but it's not. So I thank Attorney Davis and Attorney Johnson and their company for embracing us in this very typical in these instances when it's the little guy against the big developers, and we're standing in the way of gentrification and land grab that's happening in this community, and we're bringing a system in place. We are organizing people to push back in a corporate way, and it's very uncomfortable for the powers that be.
And
Okay,
if I might add, you talk about media bias. It's interesting to me that the media, and this is even electronic media, the WTOCs, SAVs, has yet to cover how these alderwomen are going out and listening to what the community wants for their area. That's what this is about. It's not about eminent domain and we're going to, place things where we want to. I find it interesting how Kessler got all of this attention and press for playing Riverside, but yet we won't reward people who are doing the job of real leadership, and that's going and listening to what the community wants. So, I just, it's like you say, bias, and all of us carry bias. It's just, are we willing to suspend it for the good of what we're doing as professionals and what we're putting out as factual information?
That's good.
And I got a couple of things, especially when Attorney Davis comes back on. I'm glad that we have people who are standing up. On the other day on I think it was yesterday on the show, I called out the state rep, the state senator, the county commission chair, and the county commissioner for this district to stand up. And also, if it was election time, that everybody would be out campaigning and telling that they were with that. But since they're in office, they seem to have lost some type of will to do the will of the people. Now, I want to commend Brother Davis because, and we want to make sure, Brother Davis, since you moved to Savannah, your office is here in Savannah and in Atlanta. We want to make sure that everybody know how to pronounce your name, and it's Mawuli.
It's Mawuli.
But they can call you Mel, right?
Nah, nobody calls me Mel anymore. Everybody, they call me Mawuli. It's
Mawuli. It's Mawuli, people. Y'all get it right. And what I commend you on is that you all are not afraid. It seems like, it should have been lawyers just running to Dr. Grim to Burnett, Alderwoman Bernetta Lanier when she was in head of Ivory Bay. It should have been people running towards them to help them defend them. It's the NAACP should be standing up instead of laying down. People all over this county should be running to their defense, especially Black men, because the Black woman is the cradle of all civilization. But I commend your law firm on being there for these women. It's not about just money. It's about service. It's about what I can do for you to help you, because I see that you're being attacked and you need some defense, and it is my job. It is my obligation to defend you. And I just want to commend you. People, we got a new law firm in Savannah with Davis Bozeman, Davis Johnson Bozeman. Tell them what it is.
Real quick, tell my good brother Francis Johnson I say hello.
I will. Brother Francis is moving all over. He's been moving all over South Georgia and across Georgia for a long time. We met when we were in law school, and I was the reparations chair, Dr. Grim. We introduced the Southern region of the Black Law Students Association. We introduced the resolution to establish a reparations committee in the Southern region. And then the next year we took it to the nationals and established it. So the issue of reparations, we've been on that for well over 20 years with the support of Conrad Worrell and Cobra and those organizations. So we appreciate being here. And I'll say this just on behalf of the firm. Our work has been, and I think our reputation has been, both in Atlanta, and then obviously Brother Francis coming out of Statesboro, has been the fight on the side of the people. And that's what we're interested in. And when we read and came to understand how Ivory Bay was being misrepresented in the media and the way they were attempting to spin it so that it really was not just an attack on Ivory Bay, but quite frankly, a way to attack Alderwoman Lanier. That we just have to be clear that there are obviously some forces who want to distract from the issue of self-determination and who will ultimately have that property under control and to be able to develop it. And so our objective is simple. We just want to be standing on the right side of history as it relates to our people and Black folk. And so it's our hope that we'll find other brothers and sisters who've been doing the fight that we can help support. And that's what our interest is. And I'll say this, yesterday I got a very encouraging phone call from Brother Chad Mans, the president of the Savannah NAACP, regarding the death of the brother William Zachary Harvey, who died in the Savannah police station last Saturday. And Brother Mans called and extended the NAACP's full support for the family. And so I believe I'm a coalition builder by nature, and everybody who's ever known me here in the Atlanta metro area or around the country, in Chicago as well, we look to try to find space where we can build together. And there are times that I know we'll be able to do that with folks that we have historically said, I don't know about them. But I want to press us to find those spaces, organize in those spaces where we can, and where we can't, we got to do what we got to do. And so I'm grateful that there is a platform like this where these kinds of conversations can happen unfiltered and honestly with our people, because that's key and critical, that we're able to educate and communicate with our folk in a way that we don't have to. We have some level of what Marimba Ani calls cultural privacy. We can just talk about it. And thank you all for having me. And again, we appreciate it.
So Julius, I do want to state right here, I was hard pressed to find an attorney to assist me in this and assist in this battle, basically. And so I met the brother when we had the Weeping Time past meeting at the Marker in West Savannah. And I just knew his energy was a fight. Like, he was not one to back down. He was one who was definitely going to think of our best interest as an organization. And so Dr. Touré, one morning when I was talking to him, he said, give Mawuli a call, give him a call. And so I called him on Monday morning, and he was driving up here on Tuesday. We were in the office and talking about this, how he could help us. And so I'm just grateful because there are a lot of organizations. I will say there was a friend of mine who did want to help me, but there was a conflict because of working with the city prior. But when it comes to the issue of holding people accountable, when it comes to power situations, I will say that, I'm quite sure if I reached out to Brother Mance, he would have assisted me as well. And so please forgive me, because that was not in the foresight. You were just in my mind because I just met you. But No, everyone was kind of scared. They were timid. They were taking their time. Those who didn't have a conflict, I didn't hear back from them. I did hear back from one, and they were saying that this work was going to be so long drawn out, they wouldn't have anything done. And so just their level of professionalism, their level of care and attention. And I think we sat in that office maybe 3 hours.
I had to go get something to eat, Brother Hardy.
Yeah, I know.
We were talking so hard. I just come off the road. I said, "Hold on, y'all. Let me go cut a mango and have an orange so we can just keep going."
He will keep you a while. Matter of fact, that day that you met him, Deidre, he was meeting me at the march.
That's right.
But I had an emergency that came up, so he just went on his own. Because when I first told him about it, he said, "Oh man, I love to go." And he went on, and we were supposed to meet there that day, and so he went on without me, and I'm glad y'all had a chance to meet and do that.
Julius, please let me report this. So Ivory Bay's attorney presented a letter to City Manager Michael Brown and to the mayor and to the city's attorney and council requesting,
as well as media outlets.
And the media outlets requesting that they cease and desist, stating Ivory Bay as a petitioner for that property as fact. They were just kept stating that, if you tell a lie enough, then somebody's going to believe it. And they kept saying it with no evidence, never having spoken to me, Dr. Grim, anyone from the board, the guy who actually submitted the proposal, never spoke to anyone. They just went full speed ahead. So once they received that letter prior to council meeting, the expectation was for them not to state that Ivory Bay was a petitioner or a developer of that property. And they got the letter, but they ignored the letter. They ignored the cease and the desist, and they continued. Matter of fact, Michael Brown seemed like he doubled down. Yep. He kept spitting it out like, he was hell bent on convincing the public that Ivory Bay was a petitioner, and he said he had done an investigation. But who did he interrogate or question? Even there is a scientific method to how you do investigations and conduct investigations and looking at evidence. And it is so interesting to see Black people operating as intellectually superior to these certain people in office who's supposed to be making these $20,000 a month. And is this the best we can get? Because I expect something a little bit more intelligent than to say you have done an investigation and you never spoke to the people who were the subjects of the investigation. So how ignorant is that? How privileged is that? So they ignored the cease and the desist. So therefore, they were attacking me. This big media demonic machine was attacking me, and I had no recourse because they are all on the same energy wave, vibration. They all vibrate evil. They all vibrate destroy because we are threatened. Because if is such a thing as reciprocity, we're in trouble. But that's neither here nor there. Right now, they were trying to disparage Ivory Bay and me because of not who we are, not who I am, but because of what I represent, and because what the message is, and because what I fight for, and because of my level of commitment, because I've been tested and my feelings can't be hurt. So all of that is so critical to why we continue to fight this fight and being all right in doing it and resolute in doing it. But Ivory Bay is innocent of the actual activities that they themselves are guilty of. So they came litigiously, they came with have put themselves in a position to be dealt with the law, and that's the way Ivory Bay is pursuing those avenues since they decided to ignore a legal request to cease and desist.
So did the city attorney receive order also?
We sent it directly to the city manager as well as counsel for the Salvation Army, as well as all of the city council, all of the alder people, the mayor, everyone. So it was, well disseminated and disseminated in a sufficient amount of time for the city manager not to respond in that fashion and to just take notice and not continue to misstate. It's a misrepresentation. That's what the issue
On
is.
the record. On the record.
To misrepresent it.
So let me ask you something. Being that Bates Lovett was served with this paper, it wasn't it incumbent upon him to talk to those members or to the city manager and say, okay, well, we've been served. If you don't have 100% factual evidence that they gave this, you should not use their name. Because then he's acting, once Bates Lovett informs him, he is, and then he and the city, because I guess he feel like, well, if you sue me, you'll be suing the city. Well, he's stepping out after the city attorney has informed him. He is putting everything on his own back now.
Yeah, well, our position is very simple. Once we've informed you and we provided factual information, they received documents from Richmond Ferguson as well, making it clear that this was never a Ivory Bay project. There was never any agreement. It was never, Ivory Bay never presented it to anyone. I mean, the person who did this conceptual plan made it very clear in writing that, the very thing that we're saying. And so again, here's where we're left from a legal stance. We're left to have to evaluate why someone who's been told by the person who developed the conceptual plan, has been told by counsel for the organization who is saying, this is not our proposal, quit describing it as such because it is misleading and misrepresenting. Why would you continue to do that after receiving those very clear communications? And the only thing that we can deduce is that it is intentional, that they are using this as a distraction from the real issue, which is allowing the community who have rallied. And I'm grateful that I was able to see with my own eyes as I came into the space to go and see, what does the community want? What does this area want for this space, for this sacred land? And I don't want us to, I feel like the way this has been shifted and moved is that we end up, some of us end up missing, this is sacred land. This is land that our ancestors were ripped from, were sold, their hearts were broken, dreams shattered on this land. It's sacred land. So that's what spoke to me. I went after I met with Dr. Grim that day. She pointed me, she said, go down here and it's gate. I went down and walked the land, right? Because we're not just practicing law just to be practicing law. We're trying to do this in the interest and empowerment of our people. And so when I walked that land, I said, oh, wait a minute. If this is the land, then the folks that are living in this community should have a say as to what comes out of this land. It should be memorialized. And that's the issue. And I know that there's supposed to be a archaeological, investigation. And if it's I want to make sure that we have the archaeologists as well as the historians, a team that are unbiased, unbossed, to be able to give a independent analysis of the property. And then we let the chips fall where they may.
Okay. Enough said. We got a troublemaker that just came on, but he tried to make good trouble. Then he must be drove into a bad spot just now and drove and got lost his signal, brother Jamal Touré. So I guess he'll be back in a minute. Alderwoman Gibson-Carter is still at her function, but she was graceful enough to delight us with her presence.
Hanging out the movies.
Yeah. So we're glad that we know that they have those orders in place, that they should cease and desist, and we'll be watching them. We're going to always report it here. We are on the break of trying to make this network a better network for our community where we can give the information out. We're not scared. We're outspoken. We're unapologetic, and we're real. So y'all remember that, because it's coming. We're outspoken, we're unapologetic, and we're real. So this is what you get when you deal from this platform. We're not playing with nobody. We're delivering the news and the information as we see it. You can make your own decision. There's a lot of stuff going on in our communities that shouldn't be, and there's a lot of people that should be standing up that aren't standing up. There's no reason for Dr. Grim to have searched all over for attorneys that are getting our money every day on every other incident or legal thing that we need, when Brother Davis has just come to town and has already not been fearful of anything.
Please support that firm. Please support them. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, they're here, and we're going to make sure that we broadcast them everywhere. It's blacks and with this media bias, blacks and the elected blacks in Port Wentworth don't even speak to Kaminsky, the lady that Alderwoman Gibson-Carter was talking about. That claimed that she grew up a racist, and she can't really understand. You grew up that way, so they don't even talk to her. She calls them, they hang up the phone. So I know she'll be attacking pretty soon, because we have a big thing going on here.
She was the first one to write an article in reference to this. And so what's interesting, the media kept saying that they reached out to us multiple times to get a statement from us. But why would we give a statement to an organization that will misconstrue it and twist it and not accurately depict what we say? For them to say, I got a text message and saying that we were evading them. I tell anybody, I don't run from anything. My husband is ex-military and ex-police. I don't run from anything. And at the end of the day, God is my only judge. So we were all apprehensive, because we knew that it was going to be further misconstrued. And like I stated, basically, in what I was, my introduction today, it would be that level of, confounding information. They would not put out what was truly, what was the true will of Ivory Bay and what was the true nature of the situation. But just to give people just a little bit of background or information on Ivory Bay, what we do, as Alderwoman Lanier says, we seek to build generational wealth and low wealth communities using asset-based economic approach. And so our most recent venture is this network of community gardens. COVID-19 heightened the fact that we were nutrition insecure, that we live in food apartheid areas. We have the worst instances of chronic illnesses due to preventable diseases. And so we knew that our people, especially in that area, after speaking with Alderwoman Lanier, were farmers. We lived off the land. Even before we got off the boat, we were ones who were an ingenious and inventive people. So we had to take care of ourselves and sustain ourselves. And so we've gone back to this gardening initiative, and hopefully to expand it into more urban agricultural, where we have seniors and we have youth. I have my 3-year-old who continues to pop in and here because she sees her Nana B on the screen. And so, you know, and as Mawuli would call her, the supervisor. And so everybody calls her Muffin. And so she's in the garden digging and, you know, taking the time to plant seeds, because we want them to be able to reap a harvest even when we're gone. And so, and also what we want to do is move forward on that initiative and make sure that it's a county-wide effort. So we have plots in Hudson Hill. We've been working with Cloverdale on an orchard. And so what we want to do is continue to expand that, because we do not want to be at the anyone to control our food supply. And then also just in the education and knowing our history, I appreciate historians like Dr. Touré and Queen Quet, because they want to continue to educate the next generation on what our history and our culture really is. It's more than just, you know, kente cloth and dashikis. It's about knowing we were more than just enslaved Africans. All of us probably weren't kings or queens, but we lived well before we came over here. And I want our people to understand that they deserve more than just the scraps off the table. And so we want to move forward on an Afrocentric Montessori school. And education is the first process in knowing who they really are. And it has to start at a young age. I love that Alderwoman Lanier's in the curriculum, it's multiple languages learned, right? My boys, I'm so blessed that we have lived all over the world at one point in time. And so they are well versed in, you know, Mandarin, French, Spanish. And I'm like, I can only speak Spanish. And so I want my children to be able to know what Swahili and, you know, the different languages and Afrikaans and embrace that culture. And so that's another step that Ivory Bay is moving towards. And then, of course, we want to work in the affordable housing arena where there is adequate, safe housing. We believe in being our own security, because I grew up in a neighborhood that everybody knew my name. I hated that everybody knew my name, because they could call Miss Sadie and say, oh, your baby's down the street doing so and so and so. But that was that sense of security and that sense of community that I have. And with affordable housing, we want to bring back those communities and ensuring that our children have a safe space, that our residents are not overburdened by rent, that, you know, and nobody likes to talk about, and I love Alderwoman Lanier, because as I tell anyone, my background is in urban planning, but a focus on community and economic development. And I studied a lot of affordable housing, but nobody likes to talk about rent controls, you know, and ensuring that people can pay their rent. Look at how we having this crisis where the CARES money goes missing to those who need it the most, you know. And so, I'm sorry. Oh, the CARES.
I hate to interrupt you, but we're gonna have to get you on the show so you could talk just about Ivory Bay and all the mission statement for Ivory Bay. But for right now, yeah, we'll get you on so we can talk about Ivory Bay and all the things, because, you know, I have a real problem. I'm a member of Ivory Bay, and I think Ivory Bay needs to step it up. But, you know, that's for me and you to get in that argument later on. Yeah, you know, me, you, and Bernetta. When Bernetta was over, me and her had this conversation. So now you get it. So, because I want to
that wants to support Ivory Bay.
That's right, Bruce. Let's step it up, Bruce. I'm with you. And my new seat, I'm with you.
That's right, because we need to make Ivory Bay all that it should be. Even with, you know, one of the things I want to say is this: Ivory Bay, we need to be setting a plan for what we're going to do should we be successful, and I believe that we are going to be successful in making sure that the Salvation Army don't get this land, we need to have a plan for it. And we need to find out how we're going to purchase the land. So if we don't have a plan in place, it'll sit there another 16 years like it did before. We need to have a plan in place. So that's one thing that we'll be talking about, so you can get on your home and talk about Ivory Bay and all the things, so we can start getting people to come and be a part of Ivory Bay. And so we can start some type. You got the attorney, let him figure it out how we can get these things separated, where we can start buying the property, renovate them, and we can regentrify our own neighborhoods. So let's do what we have to do.
Julius, before you transition, I don't know if Jamal got with us, but let me say this to your audience, that we're going to back up a little bit and look at the whole, the 30,000 foot view of Savannah and our economy right now. The one of the number one industries in Savannah, the hospitality industry, is hurting because of COVID. Lots of industries are hurting, but Savannah was so dependent upon tourism and hospitality industry that industry, of course, due to the virtue of the pandemic and keeping and changing habits of people and keeping people in, that industry has been crippled. And then the hotel motel increase went down. So this economy is a little strained in at that area. The port is 5 years ahead of their projection. But the city of Savannah in itself is a corporation. To your audience, it's a corporation. And you as citizens, as taxpayers, are not only stakeholders in what happened here in Savannah, but you're stockholders. You are invested in this corporation of Savannah, and your services that you receive and the opportunities that are created for you and your families, or returns on your investment. And I stand to say that in the West Savannah portion of the first district, due to the generational disparity, that the people of Greater West Side has not received an equitable return on our public investment. And we want our money, we want our services, we want our value, we want equitable return. And even when we purchase stocks and bonds, or we purchase financial instruments, of course, we always with the expectation that the market is going to, in the long run, rise and we're going to get a return on our investment. But we haven't, for generations, been getting that return. And now that we have an opportunity, because the market conditions have changed, where we could have investment that attract private investment, public investment, now that we're set up to reap a return, then we're fighting against politicians and not having the will to create the policies that drive the investment. Policies is like the fire hose of the firemen, and it's just going to shoot that investment out where it needs to go. Just like in the body, you got your veins and you're moving the blood, and if you have an injury, blood is going to accumulate in that area, and we're not sending the blood, we're not sending the lifeblood, we're not sending the resources to those areas that are really hurting. And it's by design, and that design are policy initiatives. So every Savannah, black, white, whatever religion you are, whatever color you are, you should demand that we fix this, because it's broken. Not that we're trying to fix something that's not broken, it's broken. And it bears out in the West Side that is broken. So we need to make some corrections. We need to we change some things right now, since this is the era of disruption. We need to disrupt those bad policies and bad practices and bring some resolution to the people of the West Side who are investors. And every citizen should demand that. So when you see this pushback on the business as usual, on this status quo approach, it's not sustainable. So what you see in me and others like me, and what we're fighting for, this is what it looks like to gain equity, to go back to those foundation policy initiatives and put equity at the foundation of the policies. This is what it looks like. And once we have equity, and then you're going to see a lot of other indicators moving, such as the crime indicator and the education indicator. You're going to see everything moving towards a more positive indication, and with citizens get a better return on their public investment. And that's just a general 30,000 foot view of what you see happening in Savannah.
Whoa. Okay. That was a lot, and I want to make sure that everybody hears that when you and Deidre appear on the show, so that we can tell the world about Ivory Bay. We need Ivory Bay to be moving and shaking. I am a little frustrated because I saw when I went on a trip with Ivory Bay a couple of years ago to Jacksonville, and we saw what
Before
great
my time,
things.
go ahead and preface that.
Yeah, we saw what great things that they were doing, and so now I want to get back and do some great things here, because I see so much potential here that we can do. We got to stop talking about it and be about it, and that's what I'm about. I wanted to also shout out to those brothers that are in the fight and in the struggle with me that I didn't call. I called a bunch of people named last when we first got on, and I forgot Jerome Irvin, Anthony. I did call Anthony Maybe. I didn't call Anthony Martrell, Adot Whiteley, Alan Maynard, Malvise Roberson, Bernard Brown, Charlie Brown, Gary Monroe, Thomas Bobby, Derek Mallow, Lester Jackson, Morris Pollard. People, we need all of y'all. We need everybody. If I miss your name, it's just an oversight, but we need you to come join this fight, because we are trying to undo a lot of wrong that has been done and put upon us. So the only way that we can do this is with our unity. They are afraid of our unity. Our unity is our strength. Our division is our weakness. And the only way that we can overcome this is by uniting. So if y'all can come together, I know it's COVID times. We're going to beat this here, especially with Ivory Bay, as soon as this COVID thing is over, because we're going to get some things done. We got the Honorable Alderwoman joining us back from her commitment to this community that she's done. You want to say anything? We got a little bit longer if you want to say anything. Don't be as long as Bernetta now.
I know you can imagine that we don't ever have anything to say, right?
You know I'm quiet.
Y'all got something to say.
You know I'm quiet.
Just thank you for, well, yeah, you kind of were. I want to thank you for this platform and giving voice to our fight. And, you know, I share with Alderwoman Blakely and Lanier all the time that it's really hard being in this place where you're fighting for the people, but then to have to turn around, explain why you're fighting the way you're fighting, and then fight the very people who you're fighting for. That's a tall task, but we're up for it. We're up for it. And I just want to remind people just to continuously pay attention, listen. Oftentimes people will call me about matters involving our city council that they see in the media, whether it's print or television. And it never fails when I ask this question. When I say, is this something that you heard for yourself, experienced for yourself, or is it something someone told you or something you got from the paper or the TV? And it's never the fact that they sat and watched the meeting. It's never the fact that they actually know about what the issues really are. And so the commitment that we make every other Thursday is long. I think our last meeting was in excess of 6 hours between the workshop and the actual meeting. And so we, of course, don't expect people to invest that much time. But if you're like me and you wake up in the middle of the night and don't have much to do but have your mind go stir crazy, take some time and pay attention to the meeting. Go to the Facebook Live link and click on the workshop or the city meeting. Go to YouTube. The City of Savannah meetings are there, as well as on the City of Savannah website. So get it for yourself. Get it for yourself. Yes. And with regard to this situation with Ivory Bay, I had a conversation just this morning with someone where I stated that I am so inclined at this juncture, due to the fact of how things have been operating. I resist this need to follow what's presented before me, because when we're following what's presented before you, you find yourself going down a black hole. And so what was presented before us with the Weeping Time Project was this nefarious offering that Alderwoman Lanier had something to do where she was going to gain financially as the CEO of Ivory Bay. I don't really know. The current CEO is not even in position to gain financially. So notwithstanding the fact that I know firsthand that this woman came to us as council members and reiterated to us a conversation she had with our now sitting city attorney, where she was concerned with the impression of how things would look if she was still connected with the organization, and said that she was just going to recuse herself or step down so that there wouldn't be any sight of impropriety, if you will. She did that. She did that, I think, in the second month or the first month that we were elected. And to know that that individual who we pay to protect us did not stand up for her and articulate this to the public, articulate this to the city manager, articulate it to the mayor. Alderwoman Lanier, I told you it's shots fired season. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to mince words. The very people that our taxpayer dollars pay to do their job, it is being hijacked by a tyrannical mayor who will not allow the city attorney, who will not allow the clerk, who will not allow the city manager. People, understand where you live. Understand who and what rules us. Our local government is guided by a charter that acknowledges that every member of council has one equitable vote, and that the mayor simply is the voice and the face of the city. We do not have a strong mayor form of government.
We do not.
We have a council manager form of government. And so a lot of what we're going through and a lot of what we have been subjected to, we really, yes, we kind of allow it. So this limited fight that we're putting forth is just a clamor just for what you all, the citizens of Savannah, need. Now, if I wanted to fight for office supplies and fight for an office and fight for all these other things, I'm denying myself basic support from city staff, from city resources. I'm denying myself to exert that energy to fight for those core things that I was elected to do. And that was to change the direction of politics as we know it in this town. You know, there was no Lou Phelps article. There was no Adam Van Brimmer, what do you call that column that they do? Editorial. There was there was no news account from any of the three media outlets. When Van Johnson voted on an item where we offered the first bond of our administration to Rockingham Farms, none of them reported on the fact that he directly received financial benefit from the CEOs of an organization that our council voted on to give them a bond. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's a Black man. And this is the point I want to keep making. I don't want us to miss the mark on the issues related to race, because it is a real issue. But where we are concerned, this administration today, this is about a man who has decided to carry the water of the establishment, as opposed to moving the needle in the direction by which we give the power and the money back to the people.
Okay.
So,
and this, go ahead, Deidre. You already closed one time.
No. I wanted to ask Mawuli a question before he got disconnected.
Yeah, we were about to go. I know he had to go at 1:50. and we're going to close her at now. He probably coming back home. Oh, here he goes. He came back home.
Hey, I'm sorry. I got
to ask you a quick question, Attorney Davis.
Okay.
In your experience elsewhere, have you had to deal with the same media biases? Or
I think, we have to always deal with how we get our own story out and how we frame it. And I think that's consistent wherever Black folk look to speak our own truth. And so, there's obviously a narrative that's been created, that is being promulgated, that would undermine those who are speaking up in the interest of, I think we should be clear, those Black people who have historically been marginalized. That's what we have to bring some level of clarity to, is that we've always had a voice and a platform for Black people with resources. That's real. That's not a Savannah issue. That is what is the reality across the country, that Black people with resources have had access. And so there always has to be those who would, what Frantz Fanon calls commit class suicide, basically to place ourselves in a space where, yes, we have access, and we've determined that we're going to use our access to try to help brothers and sisters who have historically been marginalized. And so that's the challenge. So to answer your question, yes, I've seen it. I do want, before I go, I do want to reiterate the thanks that the family of William Zachary Harvey has for the community. They have been going through it. They continue to go through it, as they went to the funeral home on yesterday to see their beloved, who was again died in police in the precinct that we stood in front of on Habersham just last Saturday. This time last Saturday, they were finding out that their loved one had lost his life, and it was unclear how and why something like this could happen in an interrogation room. And so I did want to just lift up his name on today, lift up that family, and also give thanks for those who both came out and supported the family, and those who just are able to raise questions. And we're clear. There isn't, we're not going to be able to line up 100% behind the Alderwomen on every piece, and they're not going to be able to line up exactly. But what they did, I thought, was very courageous. They stood, after we were able to bring the family forward, they stood and asked the pertinent questions. How could this happen? And this is our watch, right? And they call for transparency. And so it's unfortunate that people are trying to paint a very narrow narrative and be dismissive of everything that is being said. What I saw on Friday, I support, period. And I'm grateful for. And so that's what we have to just continue to find these spaces where we can build together and support each other and fight. Because if we don't have people who will step up when a 60-year-old man by the name of William Zachary Harvey transitions in police custody, then we're in trouble. Then yes. What did we get elected for? What did we get a law degree for? What did we get our PhD or EDDs? What do we have our shows for if we don't speak to that? So yeah. I'm grateful to be able to come on today, and I thank you all, and look forward to working with you all in Savannah, South Georgia, and throughout Georgia to ensure that Black people are empowered and Black lives truly matter.
Tell them where you're located at.
We're on West Hall, 208 West Hall. And I always have to say we right next to Bynes Royal Funeral Home, folks. That resonates. Everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know where you at. So we're right there next to Bonds Royal in a what was historically a African American corridor of business and economic development that currently doesn't reflect that to that degree anymore. But we're hoping to be a part of bringing that energy back, of keeping it going, and partnering with those businesses that are still in the area to be supportive of their missions as well. So while we're physically new to Savannah, our roots run deep in Black struggle and in loving Black people. And I think that is what folks should be judged on. I came to Atlanta 23 years ago from Chicago, and folks judge me on love for Black people, not on how long I've been in Atlanta or what high school I went to in Atlanta. They're folk that can be homegrown and not love our people. So let us find those who love our people, our struggle, and our mission, and let us find a way to convene together to work to build a new kind of a movement that Georgia won't be able to deny. I appreciate y'all. Much love, y'all. And there's
Okay, we'll have you back on the show later so we can do so we can talk about you got a firm in Atlanta also, and everybody this is watched all over the region, all over the country. So we want people to know who you are and know who your law firm is. So we'll get with you to do a more in-depth interview. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall, if you will allow me. Mr. Hall, if you will allow me to acknowledge that I recently met you the day of the press conference with Miss Shirley Francis, and I wanted to say that it was a pleasure to meet you on those, however, on those unfortunate circumstances. And I'm sure, just because of how things work, somebody will say something about what we did there on that day. In terms of it being appropriate or inappropriate. But when I learned that the family who lost their son and uncle and brother and cousin was going to be in the front of the barracks on Habersham Street, I wanted to be there to meet with the family. Mm-hmm. And after meeting Mr. Harvey's mother, Shirley, I wanted to have her be able to see me, touch me, and understand that I would advocate sincerely for truth, recognizing that in our elected offices, we are in position to support those who protect and serve us, and that's Savannah's finest, Metro. We are also in office to protect and serve the citizens of Savannah. And so with that stated, it is in my best interest, and it is in the best interest of the citizens of Savannah, for me, for the other alderwomen who were there, to be able to stand united and say that we will assure that we are working toward a transparent process for someone to be burying their son before they know the cause of death. That's not acceptable. Mm-hmm. For someone to die in the interrogation room in our barracks and we don't have expedient answers, that's unacceptable. And so we have to be, as elected officials who are concerned about all litigious matters involving the city of Savannah government and its coffers, but we first have to recognize the importance of ethics. We first have to recognize where we are in this time, in this space. And we know what's going on across the nation where issues like this are concerned. And we don't ever want to give the impression that there is something to hide. But when information is not offered expeditiously and immediately, it leaves room for question. And I think it was the compassionate thing to do, to be there and embrace Miss Shirley and her family and offer and extend our condolences, but also our concern and a pledge to her and her family that while on our watch, we're going to press and we're going to demand answers to her questions. Thank you.
All right, Attorney Davis.
Yep, and you got Francis Johnson, Robert Bozeman, Harold Spence. We have two very dynamic sisters that will come down and work with us as well, Regine Bray and Tiffany Hodge. So we got 6 attorneys and about 30 staff. So we look to continue to build throughout Georgia and build with folks who are building the interests of Black folks. So thank y'all. Peace and blessings.
It's about time.
Dr. Jamal.
Yes, sir, my brother. In the house.
Bro. I see you in that west side.
That's right. You know that, because that's where I'm at, on the west side right now.
Boy, go ahead, Brother Jamal. Brother Davis, we'll get with you. We know you got to go. Jamal Touré, you just came in. Go ahead and say your piece.
Well, the thing I want to throw out there was involving the government and with regards to about the property with regards to West Savannah. That I tell people that it has been, and I'm going to be pulling over to give it to the people strongly. It has been 3 decades that we experienced the government engaging in a housing debacle against the Black community in Savannah, Georgia. 3 decades. The decades were in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, and they tore asunder Black communities. So when we look at the impoverishment in our communities right now on the west side of the city of Savannah, it has been no accident. And when we look at a pocket that was on the east side, it has been no accident because the government, that is the city of Savannah, along with complicity of the Housing Authority of Savannah and also the federal government, they tore up Black communities such as Yamacraw, such as Frogtown, such as Currytown, and Old Fort and Penn City. And so when we look at the poverty that's right now in the city, guess what? It didn't happen by happenstance. It was intentional and it was done. And we had leadership at that time that were not listening to our voices. Because I let you know this, W.W. Law and others from the NAACP had said in the 1950s, when they saw the plans that were now going to create this West Broad Street or this MLK or these Fraser homes and Kane homes, they went and said, y'all are only targeting our communities. And the very thing that Alderwoman Bryant Lanier was saying, that's the same thing that Latham said in the late 50s and 60s, around 1958, that Law has said this. And then look at where we are today. So Savannah better harken back to his past and understand what time it is, because if not, all it's going to do is going to get worse with regards to the situation, and you will not see yourselves here in the city. There'll be those of us who will still fight and be in the city, but the rest of you are going to be on the outskirts of the city and no longer welcome in the city that once was your home.
You are so absolutely right, Brother Jamal. And just think about this. The current mayor was the alderman of the 1st District for 16 years. He sat at that table to represent Greater West Side of Savannah in the 1st District. And now as mayor, he has the same attitude because he is in a position now, whichever way he wanted this thing to go, it will go. So it is absolutely riding on the shoulder of the man that sat for 16 years and saw this disparity and did not take anything to the table. Fairwood was done by the Housing Authority, not the city. So that's no claim to fame. Look at the Greater West Side. Give me 16 years at the rate I'm going right now and see what would happen. I don't want 16 years. But I'm saying that had I been to that table for 16 years, this West Side would not look the way it looked. I've only been here 1 year and 3 months, and my hands are tied by the same man who sat in the seat for 16 years. He's tying my hands so my initiatives won't see the light of day that will really impact the poverty, the disparity, the service apartheid. You know, we just got all these isms that come at us, this wealth gap. My hands, we're sitting to the table now with fantastic initiatives, fantastic policy initiatives, suggestions, but I have to go up against the same man to get these things done, who sat there for 16 years and is now mayor and could make anything happen. Because if we have, being that it's 9 of us, and now there's normally a split of 5-4, then obviously it's 4-4, and he's on the side of the 4 that is not voting in the best interest of the same area where he sat for 16 years. Now figure that one out. It all rides on the shoulders of Van Johnson.
Okay.
Well, I want to throw this out there to say this, that, and when I mentioned about the 40s, the 50s, and 60s, it was not African-American leadership, political leadership in the city at that time like that. But now we are the ones in the seat, and we are the ones that can determine the future of Savannah properly. And guess what? African-American leadership is not doing what they need to do with regards to determine the future of Savannah fairly. And that's why I'm saying again, so when we look back at this point, we have to look at ourselves and say, we were the ones that destroyed Savannah for ourselves. We can't go throw the rock at other people. Now, of course, we know that they're going to say the invisible hand. We understand that. We understand that science. But the faces that you see engaging in this are Black faces. And this is not something. Now, I'm going to share this with y'all. This is not something I've just discussed about with this administration. This is what I've discussed for at least for 20 years. I got this idiot right here. But yeah, so this is a part of the problem with regards to our people now in positions of power, and we don't utilize it. And when I go into Yamacraw, I tell folks, we had Black leadership that could have changed the dynamics in Yamacraw, but they never thought anything about it, and they don't see any value in it. But we make sure we look out for the wealthy elite in the city of Savannah, the Black wealthy elite. And that's why Kesha talking about say elitism, this is real and it's been going on. We need to change the dynamics. And again, we can't blame Caucasians, because we're the ones in control.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. He put all these distractions up with all these task force, and this to show you that the task force are meaningless, that the task force is doing nothing. They had the CARES task force meeting the other day with the community, and not a damn soul showed up.
It's shameful. It's shameful, and it's shameful that we sent someone who can't get it done. It's our fault, and it's not mine because I didn't vote for the current mayor. But you all are responsible for sending someone who you saw for 16 years didn't do anything for West Savannah, and that's the least of these. And Savannah was over there, and you saw that man do nothing, and you still send him. And so don't send me to fight him all the time. That's y'all problem right now. I fought him for 16 years because he wasn't doing anything. At least about 14 of those years, and now you want me to fight him down, and you sent him there, and I tried to tell y'all you were sitting the wrong one. Anyway,
they were all caught up. They were all caught up in celebrity, and that's what he plays himself as. He go to all the funerals, he go to all the birthday parties, he go to all the reunions. He's not even invited to any of these things. He just shows up on
these policies. Like rent control, I've presented something for rent control to the city attorney so we could craft something. I prevented a potential proposal that will be give people who own property near opportunity zones or in opportunity zones a further tax exemption, because I'm trying to protect the citizens and the renters and the people that live within these districts. I presented a pilot program that will do some very undergirding cleaning on the west side so we could get in a position that routine maintenance will keep the area clean. That's being ignored. I presented information also asking for the impact fees last year, along with Alderwoman Kesha Gibson-Carter and Blakely. We are asking for these things that will benefit communities, that are the policies that we need, that's going to help in this opportunity zone and aggressive investment that's coming unchecked to the west side. We need policies to be able to protect people with the onslaught of development, and we're being fought, and the development is still happening, but the implementations of the policies to protect the people are being held up at City Hall. So now we're not making any changes, and the growth is still coming unchecked. That's going to displace residents who are generational residents. And that's the negative impact of gentrification, which is an economic phenomenon, supply and demand. But if you don't have the right policies in place, and then you're going to get a negative impact, and that's the forced displacement. And we're seeing that happen with the land grab, with the tax being focused on 1 year late on the west side, and those type of things. Is systemic. And it's happening really, really fast because they see the fact that folks are becoming more knowledgeable.
I just want to say one thing. So when you were talking about the impact fees, I just want everyone in this viewership to understand that you, along with Alderwoman Kesha Gibson-Carter and Alderwoman Blakely, asked for the hotel motel tax. It was not them, the other side, the other way around. And so when the funding got shut down, that's a lot of the attacks that you are getting by stating that you stopped something that was good. But people did not want that to go forward in the first place. So I just want everyone to understand that narrative and clear that up, that you all were sitting on the side of doing what was best. And when it was not going to be in the best interest of the people, that's when you decided to pull back.
Absolutely. And it was so much deception with that, the way it was painted in the beginning and what actually happened. And I want to see who could they send to convince me that spending $20 million in the first district to connect a trail to Plant Riverside, from the arena to Plant Riverside, who could convince me that that's the best use of those funds in the first district? And then we could sit down and talk.
Okay,
right.
Alderwoman Gibson-Carter, you got any last words?
Yeah, along with what Alderwoman Lanier was stating, along the way, we were at the table at the early part of the hotel motel tax discussion. When we were speaking of introducing items for funding that were consistent with balancing a tourism product and tourism marketing with what our citizens could also benefit from and enjoy, we were pushed further and further away from the process till in the end, we were not included. And essentially where the bulk of this money would be spent in the first district, the district representative, who is most knowledgeable, far more intelligent than the staffers who are actually working on it, she was not even consulted. I mean, people would probably pay her to come and consult in their communities. And you deny a person with that level of expertise, talent, and knowledge, you deny that individual an opportunity to sit at the table on behalf of her own district. In addition, we also understand that these opportunity zones Alderwoman Lanier spoke of were established during the Trump administration. These opportunity zones are supposed to be for community benefit in that they offer tax shelter to the wealthy in exchange for them to incorporate some form of development that's going to be an economic driver in the vulnerable community of which they build or in which they develop. Well, here in Savannah, the misfortune of that policy, they basically left it up to the municipalities to establish the parameters by which the community benefit would be offered in exchange for the tax shelter. So have we in our administration created a policy? No. So right now you have developers who have Isaacson, for one, wanting to develop over on Waters Avenue. This man wanted to build a multi-complex of apartments in a district, in an opportunity zone. When I asked him at MPC, what are you offering by way of the community benefit? He all but asked, what's that? So we are once again violating a federal guideline. And this is why I asked for a forensics audit, in addition to, among other things. So we are foregoing opportunity for the citizens of Savannah. We are foregoing opportunity when we don't incorporate impact fees. Pat Monahan stated that there was no use in doing impact fee structure or schedule because there's no more building going on in Savannah. And we know that you can't even turn right or left and you see in buildings in divisions, subdivisions going up. Port and container fees. Okay, if we're not going to establish port and container fees, let's come to the table and talk about how you can invest in this community by which you garner so many resources from. Between Garden City and Savannah, the port can't exist without us. They need to feel that.
That's right.
Pallets, payment in lieu of taxes to these organizations and institutions that don't pay taxes. SCAD for one. Oh, and I no longer have to recuse myself. Breaking news. Van Johnson and Tabitha Odell had a conversation about my husband's job being threatened at SCAD because of my position on council when I recused myself from votes, in addition to the fact that I'm so aggressive.
Yeah, they'll try to come at you any way they can.
Van Johnson, Tabitha Odell, not so. You got to get up really early in the morning to box with the God that I serve and the one that I sent. You and no dog, demon, or devil in hell is going to stop what he has for me and my family. Now, you can mess with me, but don't bother my husband because he's a good man. I know that's hard for you to recognize, but he is a good man. Do not go there. Impact fees, port and container fees, pallets, payment in lieu of taxes, opportunity zone policies. We're missing so many opportunities. What does all of that mean? All of that mean is revenue that we are not generating to support our general budget so that we can expend more for the citizens. $57 million is getting ready to be released to Savannah, to our area via the federal government for the pandemic relief. We have to get ready. If we want an instant replay of what happened to those CARES Act funds where businesses were supposed to benefit, and only 2 businesses that were African-American, and 98% of the businesses were in the downtown corridors. Wake up, Savannah. Wake up, Savannah. $57 million will be coming.
All right, Alderwoman. I told you to be shorter than Bernetta. You wasn't. But anyway.
Mr. Hall, did I hear you say, we're talking about the media. Are we boycotting this event? Let me know because I need to cancel my subscription. Let me know.
You should cancel your subscription. I canceled mine a long time ago. The media up here, the Black elected officials do not speak to Kaminsky, period. They don't talk to her because they know she's racist and they know that she will not report accurately or fairly. So they don't talk to her. I plan not to talk to her also. I'm running for mayor of Fort Wentworth. I will not be talking to her.
I'm not talking to any of that media. It was by design. It was a concerted effort not to interview with people who continue to mischaracterize me and take me to the editorial room and chop up every interview to make me sound not like myself. So will I continue that? No, you got to get up a little earlier in the morning. No, that's why I'm sitting here right where I am this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Okay, we run out of time for our 2 hours for today. This is a special episode. We got this platform that we got so many shows. We got 7 new ones coming, plus these 13 or 14 we already got. We got ample time to talk and let the people understand what we are talking about. We had 3,000 people watch the show yesterday. So let's keep doing what we're doing to inform this community. That's what we are here for. Y'all get ready. We're going to have a special our vulnerable communities because all these things make our communities vulnerable. And we're going to have a special monthly wrap up every 4th Friday of the month. The last Friday of every month. It'll be our monthly wrap up. I'm going to try to make it the 4th Friday. full Friday of every month will be our monthly wrap up with, and I hope to have all of everybody that we had on yesterday and one or two more on that show. It'll be our monthly wrap up when y'all come talk about whatever y'all want to talk about.
Julius, we're going in the Hudson Hill Garden at 3:00. Anybody want to hang out in the garden at 3:00? Come around. We can talk some more.
I'm gonna bring my wife out there so she can work.
Well, you better
anyway.
You better hurry and enjoy the gardens, Bernetta, because I understand that we just sold a garden to some developer over on the east side. So they're selling our garden property too. So
always.
Wow. Okay.
Pat Harris said our legislators listen to the people on the hotel motel tax bill. I'm happy about that. You're right. And
Yes, they did.
you're right, Ms. Harris, they did. So we're gonna see if we can get all that fixed. Anyway.
Can I say one last thing? Everybody, please pay attention to the William Zachary Harvey investigation. Keep your eyes and ears open and keep that family in prayer. We stand in solidarity with them.
Yes.
All right. I'll holler at you all on the other side.
All right. See
Good
y'all later.
afternoon. All right.